How do you rate as a managerial leader? More important, how do you think your employees would rate you as a managerial leader? One of my good friends, Bobby Lewis, was taking his two little boys to play miniature golf. He walked up to the fellow on the ticket counter and asked, "How much is it to get in?" Fella said, "Well, mister, it's $3 for you. $3 for any kid who's older than 6. We let them in free if they're 6 or younger." "How old are they?" Bobby said, "Well, the little one's 3 and the big one's 7, so I guess I owe you $6. Fella said, "Hey, mister, you like throwing your money away. You could have saved yourself $3. You could have told me the big one was only 6. I wouldn't have known the difference." And Bobby said, "Yes, but the kids would have known the difference." Now you might be wondering, what does this have to do with effective managerial leadership? The analogy is simply this. The effective managerial leader's actions speak louder than their words. What is effective managerial leadership? I think General Eisenhower said it best when he said leadership is the ability to decide what has to be done and then get people to want to do it. And isn't that exactly what we have to do every day in our business lives? Some of the best leaders that I have observed start by setting a strong foundation, a philosophy that is simple, specific, and easy to remember. For example, when I first went to work, I was guided by my father, who was a very successful entrepreneur in the real estate business in England. He always said to me, "Don't concentrate on making a lot of money, but rather concentrate on becoming the type of person people want to do business with. Then you most likely will make a lot of money." At one point, I owned and managed a high-end hairstyling salon. And I trained my employees that our philosophy was, it's more than a haircut at Miss Fripp's. It is a motivational experience. You could shake them in the middle of the night. "What do you stand for?" "Oh, it's more than a haircut at Miss Fripp's." They knew their job was not done if people didn't go out feeling better as well as looking better. Many of you have heard of Neiman Marcus, one of the world's most successful retail organizations. Stanley Marcus, their founder, always said to everybody, "Treat each customer as a valued member of the family." When you have a philosophy that's a strong foundation of how you do business, it makes it easier for people to make decisions when they don't exactly have the answer. As an effective leader, you need to ask yourself on a regular basis, does your personal philosophy fit into your corporate philosophy? In fact, if you had a t-shirt with your company logo on the back and your personal philosophy written across the front, what do you think it would say? But even more important, on the days you didn't wear it, would it be obvious by your action? Because an effective managerial leader's actions speak louder than their words. You're probably wondering, what are some of the things you need to remember about how to provide more effective managerial leadership on a day-to-day basis? First thing, it's not what we say as much as what we reward. You set your philosophy, you make sure all the employees understand it and hopefully buy into it. But then, do you reward it when they live by that philosophy? I have, without a doubt, the best travel agent in the entire world. Roger works with a big organization which makes it sometimes easy to get lost in the shuffle and not recognized. He is always happy to hear from me, And believe me, I am a problem customer. Because with my travel, I'm always changing at the last minute, always trying to get the best deal for my clients. He calls when he's going on vacation so I can make sure I get the best service and talk to him. He takes the initiative and changes my travel schedule by a couple of hours if I can save my clients money. He'll take the initiative to change my plans if he knows there's an airline take me to the same place that I can be upgraded in. All these things he does on a regular basis, never acts in the slightest bit frustrated. And believe me, I would frustrate any travel agent. I wrote a letter to the president of the company. I know him quite well because we've been on different programs together. I told him exactly what Roger did for me and said he really illustrates the 5-diamond service your company says you deliver. I don't know how you reward your employees, but whatever you do this for Roger. Now, I have a game I play. When I have exceptionally good or exceptionally bad service, I write to the president of the organization, as much as anything else, to see, do they write back? Within 5 days, I had a personal response, not one of those form letters, a personal response that thanked me for my letter, guaranteed me that they would certainly follow up and make sure Roger was rewarded. They sent the letter to his branch manager, and Roger said he was very embarrassed because they acknowledged him at a staff meeting. Nice embarrassed. They put his photograph in the lobby for a month. They made him Employee of the Month. They gave him a gourmet lunch at a very expensive restaurant every day for a week. They gave him gifts. What they did was reinforce the behavior that they wanted in everybody. Now, on the other hand, there are many organizations who say they believe something but actually don't do it. I had another situation with a hotel where a desk clerk went over and beyond what I would expect to help me with a major problem. The next morning, I found the manager on duty, and I said, that young lady really took a lot of trouble to solve my problem. He said, why don't you fill in an eye care card? I said, what is an eye care card? Well, it was obviously feedback for the employees. They collect them and they get a reward. It wasn't a gourmet lunch, wasn't a gift certificate, but what it was, they had the opportunity to choose their schedule, which I think is great if you don't want to work the midnight shift. So I said, fine, get me an eye care card. They looked around the desk. 5 minutes of searching, they couldn't find one. They said, go to the restaurant, they're always taking hours. When I was having lunch, I said, can I have an eye care card? Again, a 10-minute search to find a card. If I hadn't really wanted to acknowledge that employee, I wouldn't have bothered. See, they said they believed one thing, but they didn't reinforce it. They made it difficult for a customer to say something positive about someone, which meant even an entrepreneurial, even an effective employee could be demotivated. What's the point? The effective managerial leader rewards activity they want to encourage. Let me say it again. The effective managerial leader rewards the activity they want to encourage. Large organization I've worked with as part of their quality program. They have a booklet they make every year about their company heroes. These, of course, are not the vice presidents. These are the real people who answer the phone, give service to the customers. It's a worldwide organization, and this really colorful, magnificent book, they print up with all the real life stories every year. They distribute not only internally, so it can encourage other people to learn really what it's like to be part of a team. They also send it out to their customers as part of their public relations program. The effective leader understands they don't do all the work themselves. They have to get their people not only to do their job, but think beyond their job. There was a lumber company in the Northwest. They had a problem. Too many of the logs were coming down the assembly line and falling off. At a very last resort, the owner of the company said, "Hey guys, you have any ideas how we can stop these logs falling off the assembly line?" One short little guy, Charlie, been around there for about 20 years, no one took much notice of him, always wore a little cloth cap, said, "Hey boss, why don't we try this?" They tried his idea. It worked. It worked so well, it saved the company $1,000 a day. You can imagine, they were rather pleased. They had a banquet to honor Charlie and his idea. And all the guys said, "Well, come on, Charlie, stand up, say a few words for the guys." Kind of little meek guy stood up and looked around a bit sheepishly. Never been through any speech training or any of that stuff. He still had his little cap on, he took it off. "I really appreciate the nice evening. Dinner's great. The plaque you gave me is very handsome." They'd even given him a check for thinking. That probably impressed him more than the plaque. And he said, "Well, the missus, she sure enjoyed dressing up and coming out as well. But I don't know why you're making such a big fuss. I thought about the idea 5 years ago. $1,000 a day. Thought about the idea 5 years ago. Well, they all said, "Charlie, why didn't you tell us?" And you know what he said? Nobody asked. He said, "I didn't think it was my job to tell you my ideas. I thought it was my job to put the logs back on the assembly line." Modern thinking illustrates that the only way we can make our businesses profitable is to have every resource available giving ideas. And the people actually doing the jobs probably can give you more information and more ideas how to improve than a high-priced business consultant. I live in San Francisco. When I first moved there, when we went over the Golden Gate Bridge, we used to pay a toll each way. And you know yourself, anytime you go through a toll, the traffic is always stuck. One day, a rather creative toll taker worked out it seems like same amount of cars go each way. If we took double the amount in one direction, people could move a lot faster the other. I think you call that a blinding flash of the obvious. But you see, managerial leadership encourages people to contribute their own ideas. The 4 best words for effective managerial leaders probably are, what is your idea? I went to work with a company the year before they had 0 competitors. The year I was there, they had 200 competitors. That's what happens in business today. So naturally, you have to change your strategy. They had a program that had been in effect 3 weeks when I got there. It was a 6-week total program. It was called Just Imagine. It gave the employees the opportunity to get together, about 6 or 7 in a group, 1 hour a week on company time, if they chose to just brainstorm, how can we save our company money? Now, these were not executives. These were the real people. The people always hanging around the coffee pot saying, if we ran this company, we'd do it differently. So they said, okay, what would you do? In 3 weeks, 2 of these groups came up with ideas that would actually save the company $250,000 a year, each idea. Just by saying, what's your idea? And giving them time to think and brainstorm. You are probably thinking, these techniques work very well in a company with high morale and everyone working as a team. I think if they work well in a good situation, they will work even better in a bad situation. One of my friends was in the grocery distribution business in Southern California. He'd had a lot of success. The owner of a large grocery distribution business in Northern California had lost an enormous amount of money the year before. He also said he had a slight morale problem and convinced this young manager to move up and straighten out the situation. The first thing he found was his slight morale problem was actually a lot worse than he imagined. The first week he was there, the employees stole his car. But he felt he got off lightly because they set fire to the car of the man who hired him. They had an entire drug ring from a neighboring town work in the distribution business. He even found some of the men were sleeping in the warehouses on top of the boxes. The first thing he probably did was wonder, why did he accept this assignment? Plus the fact that they had lost lots of money the year before. He was the last resort, or this company was going bankrupt. The first thing he did was instill strict discipline. People had to get to work exactly on time. They had to do everything by the book. And realistically speaking, based on the situation he found, it took about 9 months to get everyone doing what they should do. The next thing he did was start to involve the employees by asking them what was their opinion. What is your idea? About very simple things. What color lines should we paint on the floor? Red, yellow, or green? What width of yarn should we use in packing the boxes? Simple things, but an interesting thing happened. The men whose opinions were being asked, for the first time ever, became slightly more company-minded. Then the people whose opinions were not being asked were thinking, why not me? And started getting a little more company-minded. Then he started going to a higher level. What sort of equipment should we use? He bought 2 machines that lifted the boxes into trucks. The men said they don't work well enough. He said, find me equipment that will work and I'll buy it. 2 men on their own time drove 500 miles to look at a factory, to look at equipment they thought would be better, and at their recommendation, the manager bought it. These people created history in the grocery distribution industry, records that still stand today. Things like delivering at night and delivering by appointment. Many of the things they decided on actually went against their union contracts. But because the men were part of the decision-making process, they helped renegotiate the union contracts. So you can say these things work when everyone's getting on well. But in this illustration, it took time. But at the end of the first year, they showed a slight profit. At the end of 3 years, they had paid off the deficit and they were making an incredible profit. But more important than that, They had a loyal, committed workforce that was creating history in their industry. I met people who had worked for their manager years after. They were still talking about him and his ideas. And the fascinating thing, these men, as they grew and developed in their own careers, took the ideas of involvement to their other companies. So you understand, one effective managerial leader not only made a difference in that company, in the careers of those men, but in companies they went to in the future. Let's look at what General Eisenhower said. Leadership is the ability to decide what has to be done and then get people to want to do it. What's the point? The point is, the effective managerial leader encourages people to contribute their ideas. That bears repeating. The effective managerial leader encourages people to contribute their ideas. Another of my clients came up with a dumb rules contest because they knew it had to be fun. Now, we work in large and small organizations with rules and bureaucracy that doesn't always make sense. So they made it a game. They broke up into 28 teams, and in a 3-week period, they came up with 184 dumb rules. Things we do every day that don't make sense to the people actually doing the job. 73 were immediately eliminated. See, if you get ideas from people, how seriously do you take them? It can be a demotivator if you don't do anything with the program. 38 of them are still being reviewed because this was very recently. 57 of them remain, but what the management realized they had to do was, in the company newsletters, better explain why they were important to do things this way. 21 submissions were not rules at all. They were misinterpretations. People didn't have to live by this rule. But look what happened. They got their employees involved. They made it fun. They did as a team. They acted on the ideas that were given. Those they couldn't change, they explained. And they further educated their people that they in fact could show more creativity than they imagined with some of the things that weren't even roles. Now, effective managerial leaders understand that creative people have to have fun while they're being innovative and creative. That's what they did with the dumb rules contest. Now, let's be realistic. There are different levels people go through when they have a job. We usually start out in excitement. This is going to be a fun company, great advancement, good people, lots of money. Now, that excitement can last anything from half a day to forever, depending on two things: the personal motivation of the individual, and secondly, the environment that people find themselves working in. You understand, some of the best people have that enthusiasm beaten out of them by the environment. The next level we get to is what I call reality. See, in real life, it doesn't matter how much you like your job. Some days you'd rather go fishing or shopping. In real life, it doesn't matter how committed to customer service you are. Some days those customers get on your nerves. Whoever said the customer is always right was probably the customer. He is not always right, but he is always the customer. In real life, it doesn't matter how committed to your team you are. Some days you have conflict. That's reality. But in real life, you do what you have to do what you want to do. In real life, we have to do all the things we don't like doing to get the job done. That's reality. But our job as effective managerial leaders is to bring excitement into the everyday reality so people don't get to the next stage, which is what I call looking. And that doesn't usually mean looking for another job, although it might. It means looking for other things to occupy your mind rather than, how can I be more effective? What dumb rules should I eliminate? What's a more effective way to do this? What is a more profitable way to do this? You know yourself, when you're having fun, you are more creative, you are more flexible, and you're more likely to come up with ideas that can save a company money or make them more profitable. What's the point? The point is the effective managerial leader remembers those 4 important words. What is your idea? As effective leaders, we have to understand, why do people go to work? Obviously, you go to work to make a living. It's tough being too excited if you're not making the house payment. Beyond that, once your bills are paid, I think people work as an education. The best people who are going to build our businesses for the future like to be challenged mentally. They have to understand, how does their job fit in the overall plans and schemes of the company? How does our company fit into the industry? How does our industry fit into the world that is changing so fast? People work for the intrinsic pleasure of doing a good job. You know how good you feel when you think you've accomplished something. A lot of jobs don't get feedback. As a speaker, I can tell with an audience if they're with me or going to sleep. I get instant feedback. But there are lots of jobs people might have in your companies where they're working alone, they get no feedback from the customer. Sometimes they don't get feedback even from a team member. What's the point? The point is effective leaders understand why people work and contribute, and they give instant feedback. Let's summarize. If your actions speak louder than your words, if you reinforce your philosophy, if you encourage people to contribute and be innovative, if you create an atmosphere where others are willing to contribute, if you make it fun, if you give effective feedback, if you do all those things, you are well on your way to becoming an effective managerial leader.